hello. Today we are doing my mid-month check-in. Hurrah! So I have been doing a lot of clearing of the decks because starting actually the day that you guys are seeing this, we are getting into the Roberts Readathon, which is where we are reading Nora Roberts for 2 weeks. And that won't be the only thing I read in that time, but I wanted to make sure I had carved out, cleared the decks for reading as much Nora Roberts as I possibly can in those 2 weeks. So I did a lot of arcs that I needed to read, challenges I wanted to address. That was kind of the first half of my July reading, and it's been really successful. I've definitely had a few like big hits and a couple of disappointments, but overall it's been a good little, run of reading. And so let's talk about what I've already read, what I'm in progress on, which is a lot of things. Like I keep picking things up and then like not finishing them, and then what I might read next. So maybe let's start with the things that I'm going to talk about in my end of the month check-in. So in terms of hits, definitely The Love Hypothesis from Ali Hazelwood. So good. I will talk to you more about it later. And then also Say Goodbye by Karen Rose, which was also really, really satisfying and really good. That one is the end of a romantic suspense trilogy I've been enjoying, and I thought it was a really good ending. And The Love Hypothesis is just a contemporary romance that had all of my trope candy, and I loved it. So those are both arcs, and I would say those are definitely 2 hits. Disappointment. I'm gonna say My Heart is a Chainsaw probably is gonna end up falling in my disappointment bucket, even though I gave it a 3.5 star. It's not that it's bad. It just wasn't, I don't know. I was hoping I was gonna just love it, and I didn't just love it. But it was still good, just not as good as I was hoping. And then Murder is Easy by Agatha Christie is gonna be, I think, a surprise. So talk about those more at the end of the month. And then the other Agatha Christie that I just finished doing a reread on. So I'm sure a lot of you remember this, but just a reminder, I have read every Agatha Christie book once, but there were 4 of them that I just didn't really remember from my first read. So I've been doing a reread of those. And so I did Parker Pine Investigates earlier in the year. I just mentioned Murder is Easy. And then I did get to a 3rd one because I've just really been in the mood for Christie recently. And that was The Mysterious Mr. Quinn, which is the collection of Harley Quinn and Mr. Satterthwaite short stories, which I didn't love. It's Christie, and it's her like in her prime time of writing. So just like her prose style, I just love. I just love the way she tells a story. So even if the story itself isn't necessarily my favorite, I do end up still really just liking the book normally, unless there's just something that really bothers me about it. And in this case, it just wasn't quite like my thing. And I'm vlogging this, so like I'll do a whole thing there. But basically, it just wasn't quite my thing, and therefore it wasn't my favorite Christie. As I was getting into it, I did remember a lot of the stories, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. But I don't know if I read them in the order of like their chronological order the first time. I think I kind of just picked them up here and there. So it was cool to get them in order because there is a progression of what we know about Harley Quinn, who is like basically kind of magic, and seeing that unfold over the course of the book, I thought was like a new thing for me to experience. So that being said, not my all-time favorite Christie, but I'm never mad spending time in an Agatha Christie book. Kind of similarly, another author I feel that way about is P. Djeli Clark. The Black God's Drums by P. Djeli Clark. I thought this was his first book, but it's not. I think it was his second. And this is probably my least favorite of the things that I've read from him, but I gave it 3.5 stars, and it's still really, really good. This is a speculative fantasy set in alternative history Louisiana, and I think that this is really interesting world building, and I liked the characters, but I thought that the plot was too back heavy, and there was not enough sort of like, I think the pacing basically of this was a little bit off. So I still gave this 3.5 stars. I definitely still think this is worth seeking out. Don't know much about it going into it, just kind of get in there and enjoy it, but not my favorite from him. And then we got 2 other authors, I guess, who would fall in this bucket of I just tend to like whatever they put out, but these were 2 good examples of what they do. So first, Steph's Outcast from Ruby Dixon was the Ruby Dixon release of the month. And this is in the Ice Home series, which I absolutely love. And this is with Steph, who has been our resident therapist in the Ice Home tribe, and she did couples therapy for Bridget and Atem in the last book, which was amazing. I love that. And so, yeah, I really like Steph as a character. She's our first queer character because she's bi and she's had a crush on one of the other ladies. I thought that was a fun addition. I like that Ruby Dixon in her author's note and then also in the text is addressing like how overwhelmingly heteronormative this world is. And I think it makes sense why she's ended up kind of going that route with the setup that she had. But that being said, I think it's good for her to sort of address like, hey, like going forward, because like when the setup first happened, like their tribe was literally dying out. So part of what they needed were couples to make a next generation. And she's alluded in her author's note that like now that there's enough people to sustain civilization, probably she's going to have more non-straight coupling. So I thought that was cool. But anyway, Steph was great. Also, Juth is her hero and he has been like the outcast dude around the camp. It was really fun to hear more from his perspective and to learn more about basically space racism towards the outcast tribe. I thought that was an interesting addition. Like thematically, I thought this one was really good, and there's like a really big macro plot thing that happens in this one. So all around, I thought it lagged a little bit in the middle, but overall this was just like a really fun entry because it had a lot of the things that I like best about that particular series. And then I did read Battle Royal from Lucy Parker, which is a contemporary romance that's coming out in August, and I just really love the way that Lucy Parker does contemporary romances, so this is sort of continuing that streak of authors who I just like what they do. I thought this one was really fun in the sense of part of the setup is that there's basically a knockoff of the Great British Bake Off, and the hero is the equivalent of Paul Hollywood, but like young and hot as opposed to like Silver Foxy. He is just like this young hot baker from like a prestigious family of hot, well, I don't know if they're hot, I don't know, but successful bakers. He has like this very prestigious bakery, and our heroine was a contestant on the show, and now she has her own bakery that is across the street from his, and so they are rivals and they're gonna fall in love. It's like a Grump Sunshine thing. You've got like the reality show element and the baking. It's just got a lot of lovely elements to it. Lucy Parker always makes me laugh. I really like the way she does character development in her contemporaries, and overall it was just like super lovely. It was a really just fun, lovely book. Possibly with a little too much plot. It kind of felt like 8 pounds of plot in a 6-pound bag sort of a thing. But overall, I really love the way she does a contemporary. Oh, and I guess then the only other one I have is How to Kill Your Best Friend from Lexi Elliott. This is a thriller that is coming out, I think in August, and this one was really fun. I really like this. It had one trope in it that I don't normally like, but I like the writing and the overall setup of this one so much that I kind of went with it, which I think is how some of those thriller tropes work for me normally, because there's so many of them that get used all the time in adult thrillers that I don't love. As long as there's something else going on in them, often I sort of just like go with the flow on the parts that I'm not liking as much. And that was definitely the kind of the case here, because the setup I liked so much and the writing I liked so much. So basically there's a woman who's at like this very strong, she used to like swim in university, swimmer. She's a really good swimmer. She is living at this resort that her husband owns, and she goes out into this kind of inlet area that has a lot of like local superstition around it, and she ends up drowning. And it's sort of like, okay, but she was this really good swimmer. How did she drown? Is it this like fabled serpent that's there? Is there foul play? We don't know, but it's this like isolated resort, and then all of her friends come there for the funeral and shenanigans ensue. So I thought this one was really, really interesting, fun, and I thought also had really interesting themes around friendship and long-term friendship that I thought was very well realized. I like this, for example, as an exploration of friendship gone awry much better than The Hunting Party from Lucy Foley, for example, which I think thematically was pretty similar. I like this one a lot better than that. So it really worked for me. Really good. Recommend. Okay, and then transitioning into what I'm currently reading. I am currently at the beginning of 4 books. So I need to actually pick one to make more progress on. So I'm at the beginning of While Justice Sleeps by Stacey Abrams, which is also a book club pick for my workbook club. I think we're meeting at the beginning of August, so I need to get to this eventually. This is a political thriller, and what I've read of it is quite good. I haven't been in the mood for a political thriller, so I haven't gone back to it. Then I got this week and have started The Adventure Zone, and actually I probably will finish this one up today. This is The Crystal Kingdom, which is one of my favorite arcs from the podcast, so I'm very excited to polish this off. That's just like lovely, yummy candy for me. And then I also started Heavy, an American memoir by Kisei Lehman, and this was the literati pick for June. And I got the box later in the month, so I didn't get to read with the group in the month, but I want to catch up with it because this was a book I've been wanting to read and I've heard great things. What I've read so far is good. I just need to put some time into finishing it off. And then I've also started The Son of Neptune, which is the second book in the Heroes of Olympus series from Rick Riordan. And this is where Percy is going to figure out what the heck is going on with the swappage, and I'm excited to get his perspective and to learn more about Camp Jupiter. I think this is gonna be fun. So those are all 4 books that I've started but haven't finished and would like to make some progress on. And then for the back half of the month, reading Roberts is definitely my priority, but a couple of other ones I will mention aside from the ones I'm in progress on. One is Last Out, Shut Off the Lights by Stephanie Swallow. This is a short story collection. This was the Literati book club pick in Jessamine Ward's book club for July. And I haven't read just like a good literary short story collection in a while, set in the South. So I'm pretty pumped for this. So I think this might be sort of a like sprinkling it in here or there when I just have a half hour to read kind of a thing, but I'm excited to get to this one. Then I am starting this weekend my buddy read with Leanna from Leanna's Library of Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, which is the first book in the Live Ship Traders trilogy and the 4th book in the Realm of the Elderling series. So Leanna and I have been making our way together through this series, and I am actually, this is the trilogy I am most excited to read out of her entire oeuvre. This is the one that I'm really excited for. So I'm very excited to get into this. This is like a real chunky big boy. So this honestly it's 877 pages. Holy shit. Okay, so this is gonna take up a lot of reading time for me for the rest of the month, but I do best with Robin Hobb when I kind of carve out some time to like really get going with her. So I'm hoping that this weekend I can, you know, at least get through like 300 or 400 pages. That's kind of my thought process. So this is up for a buddy read for the rest of the month. And then the rest is just Nora Roberts for the Roberts Readathon. So I'm wearing my I have personally explained the process to you shirt in honor of the readathon starting today, the day that you are watching this. So it starts today, the 18th, and it goes through the 31st. And the goal is to read just more Roberts than you normally would. So if you never read any Nora Roberts, just pick one up. If you normally read her, you know, try to pack in a few of them. My TBR, so the official pick and what we have a live show for on the 31st is Year One, which is the first in a trilogy of dystopic books from her. And I will say her speculative fiction doesn't usually work that well for me, but I have heard really, really good things about this trilogy. So I'm going in cautiously optimistic that this is going to be one that I do end up enjoying. Fingers crossed, that's the hope. So this is the official pick. The other 2 that are on the bingo card, which I will flash up here, and I have on Instagram are The Obsession, which is my all-time favorite book from her, and Naked in Death, which is the first book in the In Death series. So if you've been wanting to give that a try, I thought this would be a good opportunity. And then the 4th book, sorry, I just noticed the cat coming for my candle, and that is A Recipe for Disaster. Okay, get down, buddy. Oh, okay. That took a couple years off my life, whatever. The 4th book on the bingo card is The Irish Thoroughbred, which is in this bind up, and I believe you can also get it as an ebook. It is a little harder to track down, but this bind up does have it, and it is actually the first book she ever wrote, and that was 40 years ago because it came out in 1981. So that's the 4th book, and so Irish Thoroughbred and Year One are the 2 of those 4 books that I have not read, so those are going to be 2 that I read. And then in terms of other ones that I'm going to try to get to, I'm going to try to get to Carolina Moon, which is a standalone suspense from her. I'm going to try to get to The Villa, which is also standalone suspense from her, like romantic suspense, but suspensey. She writes, I don't know. You have to read them to understand these books. They are romantic suspense. That is, I guess, their genre, but they are an entity unto themselves. They're hard to explain. They're so cozy and yet violent. I don't know. Anyway, they're in that genre of books that she writes. And then also, I'm hoping I can get to this bind up of Forever Summer, which are 2 categories she wrote, one of which is called Affair Royale and one of which is called Command Performance. And these are the first 2 books in the Royals of Cardina series that she had in categories back in the day. So that is my Roberts TBR, and that is what I am hoping to spend a lot of my reading time on over the next 2 weeks. So I'm very excited. I've been planning this since, I don't know, like February or March, so it's exciting to finally get to it. Oh my gosh, kitty. Okay, we're gonna have to blow out the candle because the cat cannot handle the temptation. Okay. Let's wrap this up before he burns down my entire house. That's what I am currently reading, what I might read next, and what I have read. I am very frazzled from fear for him trying to burn down my house. Let me know what you guys have been reading so far this month. Let me know what you are planning to read. Hopefully you are gonna come participate in the Roberts Readathon. And yeah, I think that will do it for me. So if you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you're having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!